Hello and welcome. You're listening to Adventures in the Vale, an RPG discussion podcast. I'm Jake.
I'm Ross.
Sit back and relax by the fire, for there are tales to be told.
Hello, travelers. Welcome to the Cozy Crow. Come and sit by our fire. May I get you something to drink?
Yeah, I'll take an ale.
I'll have that right out.
Welcome to the Mythic Mountains RPG Tavern Cast. I am Ross, and I am a admin at our online play club, and I talk about RPGs and stuff a lot, and I have a bunch of opinions about RPGs. Introduce yourself.
I'm Jake.
That's it.
That's about the extent of that.
All right, cool. We played together 2 nights ago. No, that was 3 nights ago. That felt like it was just yesterday. Tuesday night.
Yeah. It's almost last week at this point.
All right, how have you been?
I've been good.
Have you done any other RPG stuff since then?
A lot of thinking about RPGs, but I haven't played anything now. I've been actually working on homebrewing a Fallout game. That's been my passion project.
Tell me about
Well,
it.
I know there's like lots of officially released Fallout games, and I've been recommended other games. But whenever I have this vision of a game that I really want to do, I think I'm just gonna do it. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So I'm starting with Western Games Star Wars RPG, core like roll this many d6s, but instead of they're actually like add them up and that total result against the target number or whatever, instead of that, I'm just doing more of a free leagues, count the number of sixes you rolled, and that's your successes. So the way it is now is like, you know, Fallout, you pick out your specials, and then that's how many d6s you have in that stat. And then like weapons are kind of funky because you're gonna add the weapons dice plus your ability dice, and then you'll also subtract penalties if you have a lot of radiation or whatever. Then eventually you'll finally get your total number, and you'll roll your d6s. And the way I have it now, for sixes are your successes, but if you roll ones, that's more radiation that you take. So like the radiation that you take goes back up, and then you'll have more penalties and future rolls. So I don't know, it's like a little fun passion project of mine.
Cool. Awesome. Let's go back. How did you get into this? How'd you get into tabletop role-playing games?
Well, that would be you, my dear friend. Yeah, they can't see that, but you just did a little celebration dance. That's great. That's a good celebration dance there. He just waved his arms in his head, around his head, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful.
So, I mean, but why? Like, why?
Oh, so the pandemic happened? That's the first thing. I was a big war gamer. Played a lot of tabletop games like X-Wing. Really get into games like Frostgrave, tabletop skirmish games, things like that. So I guess not war games specifically, but yeah, lots of tabletop gaming. And RPGs were always kind of like there, but I didn't think I really understood them. Like I didn't like get it. Like I just could see the D&D guys in the back of the room when they're always playing 5e. I'm like, yeah, they have minis sometimes, which is cool. They don't have them the rest of the time. Like, what are they even doing?
Yeah.
But then the pandemic happened and game stores shut down. You can't go out and play with your friends anymore. So I started looking at online options. And they have Tabletop Simulator, so a lot of guys play X-Wing and other games like that through Tabletop Simulator, but it just wasn't the same. Because for me, it's not as much about the game as it is about the socializing with your friends. And you get to roll the dice and have these fun experiences, and then that's all kind of not as much fun when you're online looking at a screen. So my hobby kind of died, and it died slowly, but it died.
Oh man.
And
yeah.
But in that process,
You mean your wargaming hobby?
right, my wargaming hobby, where I was like weekly building lists and playing that kind of armchair game of, I wonder if this is going to work against this meta, and I wonder if this setup will work, and that kind of armchair playing was my hobby. But now that's kind of transitioned as I've been introduced to RPGs. That same type of armchair shower thoughts about this game is actually more about RPG stuff and how to game design encounters and these big set piece boss fights and stuff like that. Sometimes they don't work out, but usually they do. And I've had a lot of fun running games on the server, so I thank you for that.
Yeah, you mean our Play Club server, the Mythic Mountains RPG server.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the game for you is actually outside the gameplay session.
Yeah, as Kyle Latino on MapCrow says, it's play away from the table. And
I've never heard that.
yeah, it's the shower thoughts is where I get a lot of the joy from, but then I get the most joy when I get it like shared. It's like, I have concocted this terrible thing. Look upon it and be in awe. That kind of thing.
Oh no. You hear that voice in the house and they're like, Jake, what are you doing in the shower?
Leave me be.
RPG stuff.
Yeah, it's RPG stuff. So, and it's funny because I tried to get my wife to do it, but she's socially awkward as it is. So like, try to get her to pretend. She's like, that social awkwardness is just expounded upon, and just like, very, she doesn't like it. So that's
the rest of us just call that a feature. We just do it. We just do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Just do it anyway.
Hey.
Tonight I was playing Dungeon Crawl Classics tonight, and I was having a blast because I'm sorry, Glenn, escaped a shipwreck that aliens were consuming people's brains, but unfortunately we ended up ashore on the island that the alien spacecraft landed on. And so one of my characters just sort of devolved into Macho Man Randy Savage. And I don't know. That's the other one is he's the character from Double Dragon, Jimmy Lee.
Right.
Anyways.
Well, I mean, like, I think that's kind of a thing that happens sometimes. We had Hulk Hogan in our game for a while, so kind of.
Yeah, that was great, actually. Yeah.
I think it's okay. Sometimes if you lean into those memes, it can be a lot of fun.
The internet really delivered on that because when our friend started talking in this voice, brother, like when he started doing that, it's early on in 2020. I was like, I just looked it up. I was like, because he was an orc, half orc in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition,
Right.
And so I looked up orc Hulk Hogan, and of course the internet provides, and there was like this orc Hulk Hogan. It was perfect. And from then on, that was Catalan. That was his character.
Yeah. I mean,
So that's my actually. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think that's like, it's okay though, because his meme was paired with my meme, and then there's just two memes, and didn't take the game too seriously.
Yeah, that's what. That I have really enjoyed that style of play lately. I know like that's common for a lot of groups, but I would say it's not really common for me actually. I've taken D&D very seriously, and we've had these really emotional stories and these big epic kind of sagas and stuff like that. And in the past year or two, I've gotten to enjoy like just having fun. And so we have a game coming up in a couple weeks, White Star RPG, which I'm really excited about. And everyone, let's see, one person is playing a badger, one person is playing a squirrel Jedi, in essence. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. I don't know. And that game allows for that as well. Going back, question about, so you come into the hobby, you come into tabletop role-playing games. What happened? So what happened initially when you started playing online?
Well, first I found a couple groups on Facebook of random people, and I'm like, I don't know if this is normal, but like, how do you like get in the game? Like, how do you find, like, how do you do this? And Facebook was not very helpful. Facebook gave me a lot of groups where it was pay to play over Roll20, and I didn't have any funding for anything like that. And like, I guess I could have if I relayed what I was spending on tabletop miniatures into pay-to-play games. But I was really skeptical about that because I don't know people on the internet. You know, I don't know how this works. I just want someone to teach me how to play. So I got on Roll20. Eventually, I found out that Facebook was just a middleman. I went on Roll20, found some games advertised on there, and I had some okay experiences, a lot of awkward experiences where people assumed that I knew the rules already, kind of didn't really explain anything or how to even use Roll20, and kind of got disheartened. I thought, well, maybe this isn't for me, and I reached out to the Mythic Mountains. I think it was under a different name at the time. It was Kentucky something, but I found this this group of people who looked to be actually 2 hours or 3 hours away from me, so possibly real life interaction in the future. You know, I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and see these guys, and yeah, we played a session, and I found out that I really liked D&D. I think I liked the whole idea of being inside someone else's imagination at the same time, and this whole thing. And eventually I built up the courage after playing with you all and getting to know you all so well that I wanted to share these ideas I had in this world that I had made, and I ran my first campaign. I think it was a year ago now, or 2 years ago now. I don't know. It was a while ago.
My brother, that was 3 years ago.
It's been a while, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be coming up on. We're hitting the 4th year when you come into. Well, yeah, it's been 3 years, and some change. I ran the first campaign we did together in 2020 with 2 different groups, and that one ran for 3 months, and then we started another campaign in the winter, and you started as soon as I went back to training in the summer. So as soon as you finished the first campaign in the spring after 3 months, you said, hey, I want to do a pirate campaign, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, and we did that campaign for I think 9 months. I think it was.
Yeah, it was a doozy.
It was until that next spring.
It's a big one.
Yeah, went to level 12 or something. That was Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Right. Yeah, because that's the only thing I knew at the time. It's kind of one of those things you don't really know what else exists because you only know what's public. You only know what's popular. You know, and I think I think your example that you've given is so apt of it's the equivalent of McDonald's. If you're hungry, you want to go to eat. It's well, McDonald's is available, and everybody knows McDonald's, and everyone knows what to order on McDonald's. That's the thing about McDonald's. It's everywhere, and everybody's familiar with it. And that's what 5th edition was to RPGs to me. It was very everywhere and easy to pick up and not complicated at all. Well, I guess it could be complicated, but it's fairly simple to get a hang of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a vague sense at the time when I started running it. The first time I tried in 2015, I just grabbed a player's handbook. Actually, come to think of it, I had the player's handbook in 2015, and then it didn't fit what I wanted, and I had to use a 4th edition handbook, which was still pretty readily available because I wanted someone to play a Doom guide, a Knight of Kelemvor, which would appear as an NPC later. But anyways, a friend of mine played a Doom guide, and that's not in 5th edition. It was in 4th edition. And so I kit bashed that the first time I ever ran the game ever because I wanted the story. I didn't care about, I don't care what the book says, you know. But anyways, then I started running it sincerely in 2018, and I bought it. I bought the box set that I still have, the big three collector's edition books. And I mean, I had this vague sense that there were a bunch of other editions, but I thought, if you're going to get an iPhone, and the iPhone 10 is out right now, or 12 or whatever, you don't want an iPhone 4. I just, I don't know.
I mean, I have an iPhone 7. Just saying. It works fine.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, man.
It works fine,
Never
thank
mind.
you.
I'm too embarrassed to show you my iPhone. Speaking of walled gardens, here we are all with iPhones. Yeah. So, anyways, the idea, if I'd went back in time and said, Ross, you need to use the 1981 version of this game, I would just look at them like they were a unicorn or something. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But, anyways,
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think that's kind of what I was for a long time. When you're like, hey, I know we've been playing a lot of 5e, but can we do something else? Anything else? Literally anything. And I think I was probably one of the most adamant about, like, but we don't need anything else. We have our RPG. This is RPG. You know, like, this is what it is.
yeah.
I think I had...
An interesting one. You mentioned West End Games Star Wars, and that was probably one of the big points for me where, like, I was running 5e with you guys, and I was so excited about that RPG, actually, because I ran like a Knights of the Old Republic thing in the summer. It was like called Dads of the Old Republic. I don't know if you remember that, because it was you and a bunch of other dads.
Yep.
And I was really excited about West End Games D6, and no one would play it. And we played Star Wars 5e, which was fine. But that was actually the beginning of that. Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you don't remember that? Got lasered to death.
No,
It was like one of my first character deaths. Was laser beams. I think, like I said, like, I want to go stand over here, and you're like, okay. Did not have any idea that I was out in the open. Just got lasered to death. Died in glorious laser death. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, the other group had a TPK, because I don't count Thomas's character as this Wookiee. It was so ridiculous. They were all Jedi Padawans, which, if you know that game, Padawans can do essentially nothing at all. And they just ran into the room, and a bunch of people killed them. And then this Wookiee was just like, whoa, like moaning, like in misery as his friends were being mowed down. Boy, big sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I had fun with that game, and I was like, man, I want to do something more. I want to do like a campaign with this game. I want to get deep into this, and because I really like Star Wars too. And yeah, that was actually one of the first ones where I was really like, man, I really want to learn more about this. But okay, so you came in online, and you played with a few groups. You played with us. And then 3 months later, we finish a campaign. These two groups come together. We have this finale. It's a 3.5-month campaign. It ends at level 5. And you're like, I want to run something. You run something. Start running something at the end of the summer. We start running that game. That was 3 years ago. So, pandemic is over. Why still play RPGs?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to a few things. First of all, I fell in love with them. I think that's pretty easy to say, but
why do you think you did? Why do you think you fell in love with them?
I think there's the doorway between reality and gaming. Whenever I have built those friendships, I said it's a big social thing for me to go out and game with people, but like, once you build those friendships, like, that's what you keep coming back for, right? I really don't care about Magic's new block. I don't really get, but to play with Timmy again, that's great. It's kind of like that, but it's much deeper with RPGs, because you get those rich story moments. You get those character moments that just stick with you for a long time, and it's like, man, that was great. Like, I love this about you specifically because you bring this to the table. And like, each of the players in the Discord that we play with have these distinct things about them, these quirkinesses that's like, I want that at my table. I want that little spice that you bring added to the table, and that's kind of the doorway to it. And then RPGs, there's something elemental about them, something that cuts deep, and like, that's what you keep coming back for. And it's not like lightning in a bottle. They can always catch it. You can't always put a label on it and define what it is. They're complex, and
Yeah.
sometimes you try to bottle it up and it doesn't work out and it spills everywhere and people don't have a good
Yeah.
time. And I think that's one thing too is it's bad experiences playing a war game. It's like you're salty and you never want to look at that person again. But a bad experience in an RPG, you just maybe you need some safety tools, or maybe you just need to try a different game. But like, or maybe you just that single encounter wasn't how you wanted it to be, and that's okay.
Because it's like a journey that you take together.
Right.
So you both had a bad journey. So you want to like overcome that mountain instead of, it's not something where you're against that person. I've noticed that lately. Like there's this strange law at work that I don't understand. I've mentioned this before where I've had these games where I probably put like 100 hours of preparation and work into the follow-on to the Vale campaign. And we had a great time. And that ran for 14 months. So obviously we had a good time. But I used maybe a fraction of that prep. And it wasn't anything that I had prepped for. I could have just not prepped and really ended up with the same campaign. And then there have been these campaigns like I'm running this Gygaxian super hardcore original D&D swords and wizardry game every Monday night, and they're with a group of complete strangers. They were a year and a half ago, and I was just like, hey y'all, I don't want to really prep that much, so I bought Rapanathic, this mega dungeon book, and I'll just do that, and here are the conventions for it. I'm not gonna like kind of exit that, and it like now we're all like really close friends, and and like we've played together every single week for a year and a half. It's crazy. And then there's the Dungeon Crawl Classics game, same thing, complete strangers. And I was literally like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't even have a game for you. I don't even know. What do you want to do? I want to play Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I don't want to have to prep that much. It's funny because I told both of these groups that, and they wanted to go linearly through the modules that Goodman Games, the kind of big hits that they've made. Mm-hmm. And to this day, like it's for all of us one of the most memorable campaigns we've ever had. And there's this weird law at work where there is that lightning in a bottle. There's this magic. And it makes me think of like Professor Dungeon Master. He says that tabletop role-playing games are they're like communion. There's this synergy of like Cheetos and esprit de corps and hanging out with your friends. And something just comes together in that vortex. And it's like this spiritual thing, and it's deeply therapeutic for people that comes out of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things that if you try to force that, it comes off as forced. I think it's kind of
maybe that's what it is.
I think that's something that I struggle with too. Is I think most of my games tend to be like kind of melodramatic, and I kind of get into using a lot of silly voices and stuff, and maybe like pushing games in a way that I think is interesting that the whole table may not be interested in. And I think that's something that I'm kind of self-aware of. It is lightning in a bottle, and it is like these super rich, cathartic moments. But it's not all that. It's also memes. It's also just giggling with your friends and rolling some dice, because at the end of the day, we're all just humans that want to have fun, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, but it's like more than fun, but fun is a vehicle for whatever that is. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's a special thing that comes out of it. And sometimes you might aim for silly and end up with super serious, like that meme with the clown furbolg, and it's like I made a pie throwing furbolg, and then by the end at level 20 he's like, get out of here now, the lich is coming, and he's like the guy or sacrificing his life, and that sort of thing happens too. Or you'll try to start with something serious, and there is this like expectation thing. It's an interesting relationship between different elements of the table, because like you said, it's like everybody has this spiciness that they bring, But they also have needs, and we're all just trying to connect. We're connecting with one another, and sometimes those connections, like they don't work for one part of that puzzle, And in a totally different game, maybe even with the same people, it would have worked perfectly. And I've had that experience recently with games where I put a lot of work into the game, and I wanted a certain type of game, and I expressed that, and there were people that they came and they tried it out, and it just wasn't for them, and that happens too. I feel like that's the best basis to try to interact on when you have like this journey up this role-playing game mountain together, and then you find that it's just not working. That you can say, maybe not this game, but maybe the next game. And maybe the thing is to like be open for that, whatever that magic is. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Well, since I said now I don't know how to do that, what's your advice on doing that?
Good question.
How do you do that? How do you get that magic?
I mean,
because first of all, I would say we had that, and we've experienced. I feel like you and I have experienced that.
definitely.
And it's pretty cool. Yeah. And the campaigns, the content you've made, like, probably my favorite as a player. Maybe is it? Probably is. Probably my favorite experience as a tabletop role-playing game player. And yeah. So I mean, you've done it. So if somebody else is at that precipice where they're like, I want to come in, or I want to run a game, what advice would you have for them? Starting with like someone coming into the game or to the hobby.
That's a tough question. I think
that is a tough question. That's a tough one, actually, when you think about it. I'm glad you said that, actually.
Okay, that's my answer.
You know what would be yeah. Ooh, we'll just be, kind of like nebulous and diffuse about it. Like, ooh, that is a good question,
No, I think if you want to be serious about it, my advice to someone who's trying to get into RPGs in general is don't be disheartened if something doesn't work out. And don't be disheartened if people don't work out. Sometimes your best friend may not be the best match for you at the table. Like,
oh man,
and that sucks sometimes. But sometimes they don't get it. Sometimes when you want to play a super horror game, inviting your best friend Bob, who makes great jokes, is probably not the best bet, because he's gonna maybe
and
not.
That doesn't make him a bad person.
It does not make him bad. It doesn't lower your friendship whatsoever. It just means that.
And it might be a perfect match for the next game.
Correct.
But
yeah. You can maybe he's great in your cyberpunk game because he contrasts the already juxtaposition of the genre. It's one of those things where, homebrewing is where I get a lot of my joy from, but I think homebrewing is not an easy place to start if you want to get into it. I don't think you should start by hacking everything apart. I think just run things by the book, and test things out. And if things don't work out, just communicate. Actually, that might be the best thing to tell a new player or a new person in general, if they want to be a GM or whatever, is start your communication skills. Like, start with a conversation.
Right.
And talk till you're blue in the face. Like, that's where you go.
Like, is there anybody that would say, I don't think I want to communicate? Like, so I mean, presumably people want to, right? So what is that like internal monologue that they're saying that just is not going to escape? I would say I had one this week, and people might disagree with me. Hey, I've prepared this area on the map. I don't want to leave it.
Yeah.
I'm a dungeon master. And I bought a product, and I'm like, hey, I like this, and I don't really want to go somewhere else. Are you all okay with that? Because that's how I feel. That's like one of those like dark feelings as a dungeon master, where the modern expectation is like, no, don't tell them that. That'll ruin
Yeah, that's
the
gonna ruin your
the
immersion.
shadows behind the
Yeah.
curtain. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's
But what if they were actually just friends around a table, and you were also part of that, and you invited them into that process? Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, and and it can also be hard to have that conversation.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that like people just have to get used to is like if you're socially awkward, maybe start with your friends. But if you wanted to get into RPGs, maybe going outside of your friends might be the best bet of having a good time. You know, it's one of the things where you have to test things out, try the waters a couple times, and just because you eat one bad burger doesn't mean you don't like burgers. And keep trying. And man, communication, like even during a game, like you said, just interrupting game, like, hey guys, I'm uncomfortable with what's going on here. Can we change this? Can save a session or an entire campaign, and afterwards discussions, debriefings of like, hey, is everyone okay with what we just witnessed in that game? That was really intense, or
And obviously, nobody's saying you're just going to do that all the time and be like
yeah.
for I mean, but what does happen is what's astonishing is people will not do that. They'll like not share how they feel, and then they'll depart without sharing how they feel, and I've observed it guide them either away from the hobby or away from maybe play style or a subculture or maybe a game. Maybe they have a bad experience, or whatever. I love that you said that. Like, if you have a bad experience, yeah, don't give up. I mean,
Yeah, don't assume you know the diagnosis just because you know some symptoms too. I mean, I think that's one thing. If you know what the problem is, you can get to the root of it. But sometimes it's hard to put your finger on what exactly it is because there's a lot of chemistry involved. Sometimes there's timing involved. Like maybe you're just not. Like maybe you're really excited about horror right now, but everyone else just wants to play a lighthearted game, and it's not really the
oh
time
man,
for that. Like maybe everyone else was in the mood for something else, and
yeah,
that can even change from session to session. Is if you want to, have something break in the tension, you want to have some levity show up, or you just want to, have a moment get really deep all of a sudden. I think it's just a little bit of reading the table and reading the mood, and that's part of it too. There's also, like I said, there's the post-session stuff, and I've got a lot of value out of surveys, like anonymous surveys, and especially with the stars and wishes question. I think those have really changed how I feel about a game went, and like.
what are stars and wishes?
Okay, so stars and wishes are stars are your favorite moment of a game, and it can be anything from when that guy killed that guy with the rock, that was awesome, or like, oh, whenever Johnny made that joke, that was so hilarious, or whatever the star is, that's what you tell them, like, hey, this is my star of the session, this is what was great about the session, and that is like so valuable because you have something to confirm your belief that this person actually did have a good time, and you can actually see that and measure that, and then you have the added benefit of getting to know the person a little bit better by their answer of, oh, this person actually likes the blood and gore, so we'll go more into that next session, or this person didn't like that, so I'm not going to go into that. But then, yeah, wishes is not always negative. It's actually, something that I wish happened. Helps you play in future games. Like, I wish that we would have actually been able to resolve that conflict with the orcs, or I wish that we would have got more treasure, because it kind of feels like we didn't get enough. And then that helps you as a GM or DM or whatever to get, your next session better tuned and better ran for next time. And I think that's something that, if you have a problem with your car, you take it to the mechanic and get it fixed. But if you just have a light on the dashboard tell you what you need fixed, then you can fix it faster, and maybe you can even do it cheaper and more efficiently. It's very similar to RPGs. If you can pinpoint what it is that would make your game better, then you can make your game better and more efficiently.
Yeah. because I think anytime someone's a game master, they want more information. Usually, you don't. A game master doesn't. Typically, in my experience, game masters want more feedback, not less. And a lot of times, players are just vibing. They're just having a good time, and so they're like, "No, you're doing great."
Yeah, the worst.
And you're like, "Yeah, but tell me what you want. Like, let's talk." And sometimes players are just like, "No, I just I'm having a good time. Whatever, I'll do whatever."
Yeah. I think one of the worst
and-
the questions you can ask is like, "Hey, was that session a good one?" And then they'll just
Yeah.
give you the yeah, and that's not beneficial to anybody because it's like, okay, but like, what was? And the more you prod people about it, the less they will really want to share because then they start feeling interrogated. And like, I don't know what you want to hear from me. I just told you it's a good session. It's like I don't.
And I think there's like two different kind of levels of conversation, in my opinion. And a lot of times when this stuff gets brought up, like the very idea of within side of a game saying, "Hey, I don't like how this feels," or "I don't like something." To me, it's absurd to think of that as a binary. To think of it as like either you can just do that all the time and interrupt the game, or that you're never allowed to do it and get over it. This is the game. That's crazy to me. It just depends on the group and is part of a conversation, and that's one of the things. And the players drive this in the game I run on Monday, the Swords and Wizardry game. But that game is full of conversation about what they like and how they want the game to go. And they're very good about giving positive feedback that's honest. And I feel like I can trust it because they can also talk about things that they don't like, and they can guide that. And I never feel it's something where we're doing it together as a group. And so I think that kind of conversation works good with just about anything. And
Right.
I think maybe part of that is also the modern expectation of dungeon masters. I was talking to my friend Birdie about this the other day. Like, what other hobby is like this, where the referee of the game? Like, imagine if you had basketball, and the referee
And
is
the referee
also
asks
the
you, "Hey,
announcer.
are you having a good time right now?" Guys?
Yeah, and they're also like the coach and the announcer and the counselor, and and they're also the scorekeeper, and they put the basketballs out, and they set and they host, and man, and then the players at a certain point, it's just like, I guess we could just play the game, and I don't think it has to be that way. And there's lots of things like that. You don't even have to host. That's the mind-blowing thing, is like, somebody else can do the VTT. Somebody else can host. Somebody else can track stuff. And like the whole group can do that.
Right. Things like initiative, things like music, things like all that stuff. That's bonus content. That's players. That's another thing too, is you can divvy it up for like who gets excited about what. If you have one really tactile
Right.
person, you can have them be in charge of making sure that everyone has their spell slots down, because we know that Rosie has a hard time remembering if she has spell slots this prepared or whatever. And then you can delegate things if it helps your game table.
I want to share one, actually, since we're talking about like communication tools and safety tools and stuff.
Okay.
Well, because I think this one for me has been huge lately, because there's two layers. Like, on one level, it's okay to say this is a horror game, and this is like a really horrific experience. But it's important then for that person to say, that doesn't work for me. Now, maybe this is obvious, but in my experience, I think it becomes much more important with what we're talking about. Because you said that you came into the tabletop world from the internet, and you were trying to find groups, and you were trying to find people you were comfortable with, and you'd never done it before, and you had some bad experiences. So if you're coming at it from that angle, there are all sorts of ways to talk about things, and there are all sorts of different kinds of people. So it's helpful, I think, especially to be able to say, hey, at any time you don't like something about this game and it doesn't work for you, you don't even have to tell me why. You don't even have to explain. And so that to me was a huge thing. Sometimes the details matter on this because I went back recently, and we won't talk about this right now, but I reread the cats thing and the source of it.
Yeah.
And it made way more sense when I dug into the details of it, and I've since used it multiple times to huge effect. And those became really great conversations. But anyways, the open door is not an open door to say, come and talk to me. It's an open door to say, you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to share anything you're not comfortable with. You can always just go, and you won't have any reprisal or anything. You should tell me you're going just so that I can invite someone else in the game and just so I can prepare and that sort of thing. But that's huge because that kind of addresses those two layers. I think when people talk about it, and you talk about the idea of, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, people think like, some people think that that's encourages that a disruptive behavior, but that's not true at all. This is in the context of a group where you are having that conversation, which we have games where we do that a lot, where we're like, hey, let's talk about the game. But if you want to have this immersive experience and you try to clearly communicate that, you can also just not consent to it and go, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think this is for me.
Yeah, I think that's something that
And both of those are good.
right. That's,
Like neither.
Yeah, that's something that I struggled with when I was getting into games, and then I'll sign up for a game with these people, I'm like having a good time, and then I realize, oh, they're not playing again for 3 weeks, and then I wait 3 weeks, and then I play with them again, and I got to the point where it's like, I got really disengaged in the game because I had to wait so long to play the next session, but I also felt committed. So I'm like, I don't know how to even go about that. How do you navigate leaving a game?
How do you even talk about that?
Like signing up for games great, but how do you leave a game? That became a conflict internally, and like I don't even know. Is it awkward to talk about it? Do I just say, hey guys, I gotta go, or do I tell them why I'm leaving and like, hey, I'm having a great time, but I don't like playing so far apart from each other. I understand the schedule works for you guys, it doesn't work for me, like how much details do you have to share, how much do you not have to share, and that became more relevant the more games you play and the more reasons you want to step out of a game, because if you're having a great time but there's one player that you're not jiving with, that conversation can be awkward, but it can be vital, because if you're showing up every week to a game that you're half-heartedly in, it ruins it for everyone else. Like it may be something that you think you're hiding well, but it shows. Like it's gonna affect that lightning in the bottle. It's gonna affect that mood at the table whenever it's your turn. You're like, I swing at that guy.
I think those are very valid feelings to have. Is like, how do you even? And again, we're talking about people that are new, like that are coming in, especially on the internet, which is perilous, frankly. So these things, these are things that we're talking about.
It's dangerous frontier.
I mean, yeah, they can be. Yeah. So, I think these are valid feelings to say, how do I even exit this situation, and what is appropriate? What do I have to say? Now, I would like to actually definitively answer that. I feel. If anybody is entering the hobby and they're coming in and they're going to a game store or a organized play club, or they're online and they're going to play with strangers, you should say, I'm leaving the game, and thank you. Now, this is why I want to say that definitively. In my opinion, if you're coming into a game from the outside and you're new, you never ever have to explain. And if someone tries to demand an explanation, I don't feel like that is healthy.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay it's a complete answer, and it's a healthy answer to say, I'm just leaving the game. I would also say you should tell someone. So those are the two things. So just being like, not showing up at all and not saying anything is not something someone should do, because maybe someone else would get to play, or maybe they would be able to arrange things. Maybe they are preparing, depending on the game, maybe something's prepared specifically with you in mind. Maybe you fit a specific role, depending on whatever the experience in the game is. So you should always tell someone, but you never have to explain yourself. If you feel comfortable explaining, then that's okay, but you should never feel like you have to. So anyways, I just think that's important.
Oh, I definitely think that's important, and I think it gets into, as you're saying, like, it is is vital to say something like as you're leaving, because if you do a typical online thing of just, I'm not having a good time here, I'm going to nope out of the situation, I'm just going to ghost.
It's not an MMO.
It's not
a video game.
You can't just ghost people and expect there not to be bad feelings. I think that's the thing, is like, if you are worried about bad feelings, just make some acknowledgement before you click offline. Especially if you have been thinking about it for some time, or even if you haven't been thinking about it for some time, you just realize, like, I'm not going to be able to be there Tuesday, and you know what, I think I'm just going to dip out of this game. Just say something, because people are people, and we have feelings. And like, I think just saying, hey guys, I'm not going to be in this game anymore is enough. But that's crucial.
Exactly. That's very well put.
But that's crucial when 6 months later you want to come back. Because if you just left without even saying that, then it's like, I thought you died, man. Like, I don't know where you were. You just left and didn't come back. Like, and that can cause some negative feelings and not be a good situation. So just like being as honest as you can be, and being as open as you can be is important. But a bare minimum is just saying, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be there Tuesday, or I'm not going to continue to play this game. Like that's yeah.
And nominally it may be, hey, like right now, and I tell people I have health issues, which is part of why I play a lot of tabletop role-playing games, because I'm disabled and I have a lot of health issues. But that's an example of something that you should never feel like you have to share. You never have to provide that. You never, it's okay just to say, this isn't working for me right now. But anyways, that's a great way to put that. And we went real deep. We went like down into deep waters there. So let's exit the deep waters and let's climb back up. What is something coming up in the role-playing game world that you're really excited about?
Oh man, Kyle Latino's Kickstarter for Monstrous.
I don't know what is that?
Okay,
I don't know anything about that.
So Kyle Latino, they have a podcast, which the name of which Splatbook. That's what it is. Splatbook. It's about everything he loves. So art, literature, RPGs, video games, whatever they are interested in. That's what they're talking about. And that's why it's called Splatbook. But they have this podcast. He has a YouTube channel called MapCrow. He's a very talented artist and a professor of arts. He has made a Kickstarter book for monsters. All right, and it's just art that he's done for monsters, and these beautiful pieces of art. And he's had this very talented writer, Kenny, write up like lore about them, like they're basically like everything but a stat block for a monster. And it's like these juicy, tasty nuggets of I don't know what Runehammer would call like the limbic system, like this just like raw natural, like I know what this is but I don't know what to call it kind of things. And
wow.
And it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I wish I would have backed it sooner. I wish I would have got like the retailer just so I could have multiple copies and hover over them. But that book alone has me really excited. But yeah, I think I'm a little out of the loop of what's coming up down the line. I think I'm a little disconnected there, but that's okay because I know you'll have my back there and you'll be like, hey, look what came out. And
sorry.
I'll be like, yes, let's go.
Yeah. I'm kind of into it. You might say things got a little serious with the RPGs for me.
That's a really good Kip.
Kind of into RPGs.
You're really good at that Kip impression.
I'll pick one. I have a bunch. Okay, no. I'm going to pick one. Oh, man. And it's tomorrow. I'm so excited about it. Let me tell you about it. And it relates to your free league with the D6s. So tomorrow, Mutant Year Zero. And I have been looking forward to this. I'm so excited about it. It does have mechanics like that. Like I'm excited about like the crunchiness of it where you have the dice pool. And you have, I can't remember what it's called, but there's this pervasive muck that you encounter in the wasteland that represents radiation and sickness. It represents all of it. And it starts taking away your health naturally over time. And it's also a kind of collaborative story kind of game, which I haven't gotten to do in a long time. You know me, I love the old school Renaissance. Like I'm like nuts about it. but I also love story games, and I haven't gotten to do one. And to me, a huge difference that's just like mind-blowing is in story games, and this one in particular, you don't ask permission to do a skill check. You just do it.
Yeah.
Because you as the player are invested with the same authority as the game master. Now, you're doing something like Monster of the Week or Blades in the Dark or something like that, and you're the game master, you might say, well, wait, instead of doing that skill check, you already know this. Maybe you have something more to offer where they won't have to because you know something about the world. But otherwise, it's this conversation, which is a totally different way to approach the game. And I'm also excited because you build your own post-apocalyptic fortress together, and you populate it, and it becomes a character in the game that's shared by the whole group. And the game is about going out and trying to scavenge stuff and survive and deal with stuff that comes up in the politics of your wasteland fortress, and then coming back and trying to build up your fortress. So there's this gamey part to that. Oh man, I'm so pumped about it. I'm excited about the artwork. And everybody's a mutant. And I think somebody has hypnotoad eyes. That's one thing where I was like, let's just go for it. The book says that you should always roll for your mutation. I understand why. And then I was like, no. Just make up something. Make up the craziest thing. So like already Scumbag's like, I want hypnotoad eyes and I want frog legs. And I was like, you got it.
Now I know why I'm not in that game.
Why?
Because the ideas I would come up with, you'd be like, but why, Jake? Do you have to?
No, I are you kidding me? Sean's in that game.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then
Yeah.
I feel like we all know Sean. We all know how that goes. So I feel like I could follow that for sure.
Yeah, it's
Hey, Sean, I love you if you hear this.
Yeah, I love you, Sean. Super pumped about that tomorrow. Anyways, that's my big upcoming TTRPG thing I'm excited about. If people wanted to find you and they wanted to ask about stars and wishes, if they wanted to ask about your experience, if they wanted to ask about what it was like coming into the hobby or like being a war gamer and making that transition, and if they want to talk about Star Wars West End Games D6 and kit bashing and home brewing and everything, where would they have that conversation with you?
That'd probably be in the Mythic Mountains Discord. Mythic Mountains Discord, my name's Noxious Bones. I'm there, like, all the time. If I'm not posting, I'm just lurking. But yeah, that Discord is a daily ritual, and I'm not gonna change that. So if you need to contact me, you can get me there.
Yeah, I feel like you're like for me at least, if I want to talk about art and I want to talk about kit bashing and homebrewing and stuff like that, I'm going to go to that section of the tavern. That's where Jake's going to be too, and that's,
Yeah.
I'm not as much into homebrewing and kit bashing and art and stuff like that, but if I got those questions, I'm oftentimes like, I'm going to ask Jake about that.
Yeah.
I'm the same deal. Ross, also known as Mythic Mountains or Mythic Yim in the server. I'll put the link to the Discord server in the description. You can also find me on Twitter, on Reddit, on Facebook. On Facebook, it's a in-person focused Central Kentucky play club, whereas the Discord is for international, and we have people all over the world that play with us. We have games together in the server weekly. We have, I think, over a dozen games, sometimes 2 games a day, and many of them are recruiting players, and they're open. And you are welcome to join us and come and talk to us, and I'll put all that information in the description.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed your time here at the Cozy Crow.
Oh yeah, the Cozy Crow. Yeah,
I'm over here
and,
stoking the fire for other players, getting them
Awesome.
pumped up and excited about it.
Yeah, cool. Well, and yeah, have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Mythic Mountains RPG is a private online play club that focuses on folk RPGs. Folk RPGs are the games that belong to all of us. They're what actually happens at a table between friends. It's their voice that has the authority on what is fun and what works for them. Weekly, we upload our games to allow others to sit in with us. The channel isn't monetized. We don't own the artwork, music, software, or games shown in these actual plays, and you can find links to their authors in the description. Like, subscribe, and share if you wish, or don't. Just like games in person, you're welcome to pull up a chair, sit in, and watch some of our games. No performances, no fancy equipment, just regular people playing full pencil and paper role-playing games and having a good time. We hope these games will prove a source of enjoyment to anyone just wanting to listen in, anyone looking for examples of how actual groups run and play folk RPGs, and most importantly, if you haven't found your group yet, you're welcome here at ours.